Thank you. So we're gonna play a trailer of the film, just to remind you where we've been.
Hey, stop! Put the barrier up!
I don't wanna be your hero. I don't wanna be a big man. I just wanna fight with
You guys ready to have some fun?
Yeah!
Whoa!
Don't worry about it.
Wish we could use the bumpers.
You don't want the bumpers. Life doesn't give you bumpers.
We have a new student joining us today.
Hey, dude. Welcome to the suck.
Mom, have you been partying?
A little bit.
Oh, okay.
I don't wanna be a big man. I just wanna fight with
Where do you want to be, Mason? What do you want to do?
There's a little capsule of the amount of time that we covered that talk about editing. They got that encapsulated in a very short amount of time in that trailer. So I'm going to start out by just giving you an overview of what it's like to be in the shoes of an editor confronted with footage. I worked on a film before Boyhood. I worked on a film called Before Midnight, which is the third in a trilogy of films made about a couple. In Before Midnight, there's a dinner scene. There's 8 characters around a table. It was filmed in Greece, so the director, the crew, and everybody was in Greece, and I was in my cutting room in Austin, Texas, receiving this footage. And I didn't have any notes from the director. I just got a cryptic email from the director saying, Sandra, you're going to get this huge dinner scene. I'm a little bit worried. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. So I get this scene. It's 8 characters around a table. It's a very long scene. I think the scene runs about probably 20 minutes. He shot it with 2 cameras, and he went completely around the table with these 2 cameras, shooting every imaginable angle and size. Also, the way that Richard Linklater shoots films, he doesn't always do a take and then cut the camera, do another take, cut the camera. What he will do is he will not cut the camera, and he'll have the actors start over. Mid-sentence, mid-scene, jump here, jump there. So I get these very, very long takes that have multiple takes within the take. So as an editor, it rattles the brain about where to begin and how to approach a scene like that. So on a Saturday, I went in and I was like, okay, I'm gonna cut the dinner scene. And when I started looking at the coverage, I was dumbfounded because it was so confusing. So I had the bright idea to sit down and draw a diagram of the dinner table and mark where every shot originated from and where it went to. So I methodically went through the scene and drew this diagram of like 17A take 1, 17A take, and where camera A and camera B and where those two shots went. I went through all the coverage and I came up with this diagram. And then I thought, well, that looks like an astrological chart. This is really not going to help me at all. So, what is the criteria that I use to start editing a scene like that? It's overwhelming. I think it's overwhelming for any editor to approach a scene like that where there is, pages and pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of dialogue. So what is my criteria? Here are the questions that I end up asking myself. What is the intent and what is the focus of this scene? And what is Rick or any director trying to accomplish? What is extraordinary about this scene? What are the moments that resonate that I need to pull out of all that mess? A lot of flubs, a lot of crying, a lot of, I can't do this, it's too much. Actors melt down when they're under that kind of pressure. This scene was shot over the course of 4 days. We had insects, it was hot, people were sweating, and it was pretty grueling. So what do I think is important in the scene? What are the moments that I need to hit as an editor? And what should the emotional impact be? So here's what I have to start with. What's the story? What is the story that I'm trying to tell? That is the primary main focus. Telling a story and being able to do it in the most efficient, economical way, with finding the shots and the angles and the expressions that translate what it is the intent is. Performance. In the Linklater films, his films are mostly, almost all of them, grounded in reality. So I'm looking for the performances that communicate I'm looking for the performances that resonate, that very easily and quickly communicate something, but they also have to feel real. I'm looking at the camera works. A lot of it's out of focus. A lot of it's got bumps. A lot of it's got flaws. There's microphones coming into the shot. All of that kind of stuff, the size, camera movement, all of that has to come into consideration. Can you hear the sound? Are there overlaps? Is everybody talking on everybody else's lines? If you're trying to cut from one character to the next and they're talking on top of each other's lines, you can't get in there and make a cut. So you have to judge by, is there a milliframe of space in between words where you can make a cut or not? Shadows, booms, continuity. In a dinner scene like this, you're looking at people who are eating grapes in one take, and the next take they're drinking wine. Next take they've got a cigarette. And you're like, what the hell? What director puts all these props in front of an actor? Bad idea. Okay, so then you have to think about what genre you're working in. Is it a drama? Is it a comedy? What's the mood that you want to create? What's the pace going to be? For example, if it's a dramatic moment, do I need to create emphasis for the drama? Do I need to make it feel slower? Do I need to allow for moments to land and to sink in emotionally? Or if it's a comedy, do I need to speed it up and make the cuts faster? So thinking the whole time about what genre am I working in? If it's going to be something lyrical, having things slow down to create a dreamy quality, using breaths, pauses, looks. So, what are the tools? I have the size of the shot, close up, medium shot, wide shot, extreme wide shot, angles from the rear, over someone's shoulder, close up, reaction shots, developing connections between characters, POV shots. Whose POV is this all coming from? Are we seeing it from someone's eyes, from someone else's perspective? These are all things that editors have to take into consideration when they're approaching a scene, any scene. A big scene, small scene, complicated scene. Once you begin editing, my motto is just start somewhere. It doesn't really matter because it's going to change. Just tackle it. You just have to start at the beginning and you'll figure it out. Many times I will cut a version of a scene. Okay, this is what goes on in my brain as I'm cutting. I start cutting and then all of a sudden I see a take that I didn't use and I make a mental note. That look actually works better because there's more motion and the timing of that is better than the take that I used. This other shot, the continuity is better. The whole time I'm committing to memory what I'm seeing. I'm trying to focus on one version, simultaneously committing to memory all of the little stuff that I missed, that I didn't get into my first version. And then I'll go back and I'll make a second version and I'll pull in the moments and pieces that I think might serve me better. And a lot of times I'll end up with 4 or 5 versions of a first cut, and then I will evaluate them and I'll pull the best of all the versions and put them together in what I call my combo version with 3 asterisks behind it, so I know that's the version that I finally have ended on. Let's see, what else do I want to tell you about my world? It's very difficult to know when you're editing a scene when enough is enough. And this is something that I think experience allows an editor to know when you have fully exhausted as many options as you have. And there are millions and millions of options about what shot you should be on at any given time and the length of the shot. And there, you could cut here, you could cut there, you could cut there, you could cut there in a shot. And each of those choices would create a different result. But as an editor, you have to know when to step back and just say, I have fully exhausted almost every option that I think is viable. And it's time to stop there and to just settle with it for a little while. But many times you realize after watching it, 30 times that, hey, it would be actually better if you took the end of this scene and moved it way earlier and then just lost the rest of it. I mean, there's the combinations of ways to edit a film and a scene are endless. We always get the note from the studio, you got a lot of shoe leather in there. Well, what does that mean? Entrances, exits. One producer told me, you have a lot of, excuse my language, a lot of assholes and elbows. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means you've got the camera on an actor's back a lot. And you're seeing, you can't get anything from somebody's back at their elbows. So, these kinds of things go through your mind as you're trying to evaluate what your gut is telling you, how the scene is going to end up looking. So here, I just want to speak for a moment. I know that most of you are studying, or many of you are studying films from an academic perspective, cinemetrics. But as an editor, I'm almost on the opposite end of the scale, because what guides me is my gut and my instinct and my taste. And I am rarely thinking about why I'm making the decisions that I'm making. It's interesting to now be able to, afterwards, to be able to look and try to analyze why I did what I did when I was cutting. But when you're in the hot seat of trying to make a film, and there's a lot of pressure on an editor to deliver the goods and have it be what the director is intending, you are forced to evaluate, like, is this working for me? Does it feel right? What would feel right to go to next? It's not an analytical decision. It's mostly a gut decision. I have a quote from Sidney Levin, the editor of Mean Streets. He said, "You just know." Alan Hyme, who worked on The Network, said, "You go by intuition every time." The editor of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly said, "You rely on instinct." Some editors have it and others don't. And I think, most importantly for me, does it feel right? If it feels right to me, it's going to feel right to someone else. In terms of Boyhood, I always looked for moments that moved me, that I could relate to, that I recognize as human behavior, human interaction, and that I see as a part of my own life and the people that I know and love. Finding the moments that spoke to me and resonated with me, I just trusted that those moments would resonate with other people. And finding a way to unfold a scene that makes sense to me, that works for me, and makes me feel something. And I've learned to trust my instincts. I've been editing with Richard Linklater for 22 years. We've made 18 films together. We made 9 other movies in the course of making Boyhood. So I'm getting the validation that my gut, my instinct, and my taste are working for us, for Rick and I as a team. Okay, so just to review, 1 second, I'm going to get to that. So here's the things that an editor holds in his mind simultaneously when piecing together a scene. Just try to put you in my shoes a little bit. The pacing, the drama, the acting, the sound, the music. Where will the music go? What kind of music? What's really happening in this scene? What does the director intend? How is the audience going to feel about this, and does it feel real? Would a character really do that? What's extraordinary in this scene that I need to make sure comes across? But that's not the best angle. The other angle was better for continuity. One take was better for timing. The camera has a jerk. The actress is stumbling on her lines, but the performance is awesome. Maybe I can take her words from the good take and put it in the take where the camera is okay. There's just a ton of minutia. I always think of my job as minutia, little tiny decisions that come out to a cumulative effect that transports an audience. And so my business is the minutia and then the big picture of the story. And it's, I think it's unlike many professions, but it's probably not that unlike writing. I imagine that it's a lot like writing or sculpting or anything where there's detail and the big picture. Okay, so, not quite ready yet, not quite ready yet. I just want to talk about Linklater's style. I talked about it a little bit already, but if any of you have studied or watched his first film, Slacker, it's a combination of these very long takes where the camera follows a character through an environment and they're talking and talking and talking and talking. And then other characters come into the scene and then another takes these other characters through their scenario. And it's a series of very, very long takes with people talking the whole entire time. This is something that I think that Rick, if he could have it his way, he would have no cuts in his movies. He loves the long talking shots. And over time, he has come to understand, with my help, that some of his, I treasure and really respect what he does and the kinds of films that he makes and his unique way of telling stories. But sometimes, especially on a film where there's a studio involved, we have to pace. We can't wait while the camera goes and does all this long stuff. We've got to cut to pace the films. And it's just been really a process for me to learn his style and be comfortable with his style, and at the same time teaching him and allowing him to understand that editing helps. It doesn't hurt, it helps. So he's finally starting to, after 22 years, he's leaving me alone, pretty much. Okay, so Boyhood. I'm going to talk quickly about the process of Boyhood. Tell me if I'm going to be running out of time. Boyhood was shot every year for 12 years for 3 or 4 days. Each year, I would get about 3 weeks to edit that year's footage. So after about 2 years, we started to combine 1 year after the other. And we would then watch the 3 years put together, and then we would take notes of changes that we might want to make, but we were very, very careful not to be hasty about the editing of Boyhood. We didn't make any radical changes in Boyhood for the first, I would say, 4 or 5 years. It was a Zen experience because there was no written script that I ever saw. The script was in Rick's head. It's an autobiographical film in many, many ways. He wanted to capture childhood growing up in Texas, but he knew that he would never be able to achieve a movie about childhood in a traditional way. And so he had the idea, well, what if we just shot a little bit every year for 12 whole years and just see what we have? So I knew that he knew it was going to start in first grade and end with going to college. That much was a framework that I knew. Rick had things that he knew he was going to put into the movie. For example, the Bible and the gun. He called his Texas bar mitzvah. That actually happened to him. He got for Christmas a Bible and a gun. He knew he was going to have that in the movie. But he also was incredibly sensitive to Eller, the little boy who plays Mason. He was really sensitive to the events that were going on in Eller's real life and Lorelei, his daughter, his real daughter's life. He did not want to create instances in the movie for characters before these real kids experienced them in their own life. So, for example, he knew he wanted Eller to have, or Mason, to have a girlfriend, but he didn't want that to happen in the script or in the movie until Eller had personally experienced that. The same with drugs. He knew at some point Eller was going to take a drink of beer and he was gonna probably smoke a joint. But Rick was very sensitive not to write that into any scenes until he knew that Eller, as a person, had developed into that. So there was a lot of overlap in Boyhood between what was going on in all of our lives and what Rick was trying to achieve in Boyhood. So as we edited the film as it was being shot, and because there were long periods of time in between each year's shoot where we could actually think about the film and have conversations, editing started to inform what was going to come next. So in terms of the transitions, people are freaking out about these time transitions. It's 12 cuts in the movie. But these were not transitions that solely came about in terms of in the editing room, though I did do my share. But they were transitions that were created because we knew what the outgoing shot was going to be, and then Rick could think about and live with the outgoing year and be able to formulate his ideas about what was incoming. And he's very, very tuned in to creating transitions that differ. Like if I'm leaving a year with a close-up of Mason, then we're probably going to start the next year in a wide shot. He's very sensitive to not having those kinds of redundancies in the transitions. Also, when we first started in 2002, I so wisely asked him, hey, are we going to play around with time? Are we going to take, we're going to do flashbacks and do all this fancy editing and stuff like that? And he was absolutely certain, no, we're not going to play with time. It's going to be completely linear, and we're going to go moment by moment. And to me, that was like the key sentence of direction for me as an editor, moment by moment. And that is really what kind of inspired me to walk into the cutting room each year having no idea. There were no script pages. I had no idea what was going to be in that year. But in terms of my Zen experience, I just cut that year and I didn't have to worry about what was going to come after. I just wanted to make each year resonate. Okay, so we didn't really make any, okay, so budgetarily, and I have to talk about this, we shot and edited each year for around $200,000 a year. So I had very strict guidelines about how much time I was allowed to spend each year. 3 weeks, basically, 4 if I had to. Toward year 11, I started to beg for real post-production time because I felt like it was never an immersive experience editing Boyhood. It was so compartmentalized year by year by year by year. And we would watch the whole thing, and so I could understand the cumulative effect, but I never had the luxury of a true post-production immersive period. And finally, I was allowed to spend 4 or 5 months in year 11, at the end of year 11, before they shot year 12, where I put in music, and I went back and I really honed scenes. I went through and I added many of the close-ups and medium shots of Mason that you see in the film today. I went back in and plugged those in year 11. And there were also some scenes that we had lived with for 11 years that we finally said, okay, we need to go in and condense these scenes. We need to go in and pull out lines of dialogue internally to make these scenes be more well-paced. When we started, we thought we were going to shoot, that we would end up with like 15 minutes per year, or 20 at the most. If we had had 20 minutes of edited footage per year, we would have a 2-hour movie. But we have a 2-hour 45 movie. It was impossible to contain some of the years. Okay. I want to talk, I know we need to get to the clips. I want to talk about the music, because this was such a huge part of our process that I don't think we've talked publicly much about the process of the music. But what we did was we went back to, I have a son who is a little bit older than Mason's character, and I have a daughter who also is just a little bit older than, like 5 years older than Mason's character. So I was familiar with a lot of the music because my kids had listened to a lot of the music, and so I knew some of the songs very, very well, the lyrics, everything. But Rick said, look, we are too old to be making the music selections of what these young people would be listening to. They would not be listening to what we would choose for our music. So we pulled the top 100 Billboard songs for every month where the movie takes place. For example, May 2002 is what the date of the very first scene. I have this huge document, I don't have it with me right now, but that breaks the film down by year, month and year. And then for every month and year of the movie, we had lists and lists of songs that were like the top Billboard 100, the top alternative songs, the top country songs, the top this, that. So I had these notebooks of music songs. Then we hired some neighbor kids of mine that were the same exact age as Mason. And we gave them these lists of songs, and we asked them to write a paragraph about each song that they thought they knew. So we got comments from these kids like, I remember this song when my mom would be driving us to soccer practice, and my sister really loved this song, but all the boys hated it. So this was a way for us to try to be more authentic with the music, to select scenes that we knew would resonate correctly with the age of Mason, the time that the film takes place. And then we started getting into sub-music, like what would Mom be listening to? And what would Dad be listening to? Ethan Hawke's character, he was like more of a singer-songwriter guy. He would not be listening to Billboard 100. So we had other songs that we were selecting from the time that were in the singer-songwriter genre. All of this work with the music had been a work in progress, but I never put a single song in the movie until year 11. And that was a big part of my schedule that I was finally granted in year 11. By the time we got to the end of year 11, the film was in really good shape. And the only thing that we had left was an ending. And Rick took the crew, they went out to West Texas, to the Big Bend National Park. Well, they had planned the shoot. This is just a little anecdotal story. They had planned the shoot in Big Bend National Park on the weekend of the government shutdown. They had they had a helicopter, they had all this, everything in place, the cast, they transported everybody out there. our very own state senator pulled the plug on the United States government, so the national park was closed. And so they ended up shooting in the Big Bend State Park instead. And that anthem song that you hear in the trailers and the ads, that song Hero, which is the song that Mason drives to college with, that was a song that had a little green dot on it that was put in by an intern. When I got the footage for that going to college, I was like, I can't even cut this without music. I don't know what I'm supposed to be feeling. So I went through all the songs that were highlighted by our music consultants. And I found this song Hero, and I put the song in, and I cut the scene to that song. And when Rick came in and he saw it, he said, "That's pretty good, but isn't it a little bit too on the head?" And I said, "If you change that, we have to keep it. Let's just see it with an audience and see what happens." And it ended up being, it really worked. It captured the moment of Eller leaving for school. Okay, I'm done talking now. I probably have a lot more to say, but I think we better move on.
All right, I'm ready to play.
Okay, yes, I'm ready. So this is the end of
Let's
year
go,
one.
'cause I want to get there before it gets dark.
Goodbye, yard. Goodbye, crepe myrtle. Goodbye, mailbox. Goodbye, box of stuff Mommy won't let us take with us, but we don't want to throw away. Goodbye, house. I'll never like Mommy as much for making us move.
Samantha, why don't you say goodbye to that little horse shit attitude, okay? 'Cause we're not taking that in the park.
Goodbye, old lady. Listen to rock music and ride the motorcycle.
Life in the communist holds meetings in his office. I can't afford his gas, so I'm stuck here watching TV. I don't have much time.
Hey, what's happening back there? Stop, put the barrier up. Hey, put the pillow between you, make a barrier. Come on, stop. We're gonna play a game called the game of silence. Whoever can stay quiet for the longest period of time wins. You guys think you can do that? Okay, go.
Gonna tell him that I got no one to blame. But every time I feel lame, I'm
Class will be here in 10 minutes. Put that homework in your backpack. Go eat. Baby, go eat.
I am. Just speak so you am a girl. Speak English. To survey you have. Shut up, Mom. She's speaking that stupid language again.
Samantha.
I was speaking perfectly clear English, Mother. You know, he's a little slow in the head. He did officially flunk first grade.
Sit your butt down.
Yes, sir, Mother, sir.
Okay, so the first shot in that scene is 28 seconds long, with them coming out of the house and goodbye yard, goodbye this, goodbye that. But it is that is so Linklater, because it's filled with humor, something we can all relate to. Anyone who's had kids probably has read Goodnight Moon to their kids. It's humorous, and we get a sense of the emotional state of the whole family leaving their home. We learn something about the naivety and the reality of their neighborhood, where they're leaving. is this funky little house in Austin, Texas. And Mother's thinking of the task of leaving. Just get in the car, we are out of here, let's go. The point for me was to find the best take, with the best timing, the best acting, the funniest, and for the screen time, the shortest and most technically sound take. It is a very Linklater type of shot. Mason seeing his friend goodbye. I cried when I saw the shot of the little boy on the bike disappearing behind the grass. Those are the kinds of shots, I think, that resonate in boyhood because it's based on memory. It's based on the kinds of moments that we all experience in our lives where you remember the last time you saw your friend. And then I use that close-up afterwards of Mason, that long shot of Mason just looking, where you can kind of get the sense that it's sinking in. That's the last time he's going to see that friend. So that close-up is very effective for that. Then hitting the road, the fight in the car, those kids went nuts. They weren't really professional actors. So when Rick gave them the direction to just kind of fight, scream a lot, Lorelai was like screaming and the kids were just pulling the pillow back and forth. There was a lot of footage, a lot of coverage in that car with Mom trying to, harness the kids. And at one point I think I had it cut where that shot down the country road, it's 290 from Austin to Houston, with just shrieking over the car shot. But then on re-examination I found the piece where Eller, I keep calling him Eller, when I say Eller I mean Mason, when he punches that pillow, I was like, that is exactly what my son would do to my daughter. It was so familiar. I was like, my son's name is Marshall. I was like, that's Marshall. That's exactly their relationship. So naturally I pulled that. That's, bringing my own experience as a human, as a mom, as a Texan into the scene. Then they pull into the apartment building, completely different housing situation. No grass, mostly pavement, multiple stories, not a neighborhood, an apartment complex. The music that I selected, Sheryl Crow, in the mom genre. And then the transition from out of that apartment, it's a pan down from the top of the apartments to her pulling into the parking place. The next cut is year 2. He bursts into his bedroom door. He's a year older, and Lorelai's grown, everybody's grown up. So this is a transition that changed in year 11. After we had gotten 11 years worth of, or 10 years worth of transitions right, we looked at that one and we re-evaluated the cleverness of that transition. And so Yuri, if you'll show the second clip, this was the old transition. This is the way it was originally shot.
Okay, go.
Before I put music in it.
Wow. Hey, look, we have our own dining room, guys. Kitchen. Well, what do you think?
I like it. Oh, can I see my room?
Yeah, let's see our rooms. Bus will be here in 10 minutes. Put that homework in your backpack. Go eat!
So that's what our decision-making process was there, is that the natural transition in one's life and in one's memory is going to be arriving and then being in the next time. It was the most logical time cut to go from arrival, exterior, time cut, interior, and taking that middle shot of them coming into the apartment and wandering around out of the film helped us understand what we were doing with time. It's a momentum cut. It's a way to transport. You think, psychologically, you think the next cut is going to be coming into the apartment, but to be able to advance time that way, it's essentially the same cut. Both cuts, one they're coming into the apartment, one he's coming into the bedroom. It's essentially the same idea. It's just a way to make that time leap. And once we figured that out, we're like, okay, we think we're doing the right thing with these transitions. At one point, Rick and I talked about, do we want to identify the year with a title or anything like that? And we were like, no, we want these transitions to wash by almost as if you're just cutting to the next day or the next moment. And then after a minute, the audience realized, hey, wait a minute, something's changed. So that was very intentional to do it that way. Okay, second clip. How are we doing this time?
I think we have time. I mean, you deserve 12 hours. And
I'll talk less.
don't worry about time.
Okay.
Please join me in the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee. Texas is one and indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated. All right. All right, class. As you know, we've been working on our mythology projects, and we're going to be writing papers about gods and goddesses. We've listed those gods and goddesses here on the board. We added a couple of monsters for some of you who might be interested in that. And you're going to write your essay about your god and goddess, and to make sure that you cover everything, let's make sure that we do all of these things right here. First of all, we need to name your god or goddess, and you need to include who, what, when, where, why, and how. So make sure that you cover all those things when you're writing your essay. There's a bump right there. See y'all later, guys. What happened?
No. Go in the house. Go in the house. Go in the house.
Brother had a little accident. Now she's being dramatic. Get off the fucking floor, Olivia. For Christ's sake.
Okay, so what you're seeing down here is the timeline from my Avid. So you can see the lengths of the shots, and that thing down on the tracks 13 and 14 is the song Crank That. And so that's just a pictorial way of looking at the scene. Many of you look at the Cinemetrics and see something similar, I suppose, but I just want to tell you a little bit that music, Soldier Boy, which prelapsed the cut to the new year, spent 7 weeks at #1 on the US Billboard Hot 100 in the fall of 2007. And the song is recognized by its looping steel pan riff. It causes what has been called the biggest dance fad since the mid-1990s Macarena, and with an instructional YouTube video for the dance that surpassed 27 million views by early 2008. So it was, I've screened this many times with audiences, they just freak out when they hear that song. It's like, oh my God, we can't believe you used that song. And I'm so glad that we had our music consultants to help us, because I never would have known that that song was anything. So that transition, that is a marker, that's a time marker. People of that age know that song, 2007, 2008. That's a marker in their lives. But also that transition is interesting because we go from the humiliated, shaved head Mason in the classroom, who's just made his first little romantic encounter, to this skateboard, and we pan up to a kid, and for a minute you're like, is that Mason? And then it pans over, and then we do see Mason on the bike, and we do recognize him. He's older, his hair is longer. So there's a lot of time clues in that one transition. Do we have more time, or should we skip to the?
Let's look. It's 2 minutes to 11. Like technically, we have we have 15 minutes.
Okay.
We can skip questions and perhaps email them to you if we are late.
Or-
But that's more important for us to hear you rather than talk to you at this
Okay.
point. So let's do as much as we can, and then
Okay.
cut whenever we feel we cannot go.
Sounds good. Oh, we could skip, if you want, we could skip clip 4 and go to clip 5 and show the early charades,
Yeah.
and then the wait, is that the second?
Okay, this is the charades thing, the early charades,
Okay.
right?
Oh, once again, I take it out.
You know, he thinks you're going together? Yeah, that's not true at all. We're just friends. It's not what he thinks. Well, the situation's pretty complicated because, you know, I kind of like his friend, so it makes it a little awkward.
The mask. Debbie Musketeers. First word. Chicken. Burger. Second word. Hood. Big hair. Robin Hood. Second word. Blanket. Hey, you can't use props.
Hey, hey, judges speak. No props, no props. Can't use props. Go ahead. You can do it without that. Think.
Folding.
Is it
The
like,
gathered.
is it
Gathering. Folded.
It's just messing around with the blanket.
So
Crumpled up thing. Wrinkling it.
Wrinkle in time.
Wrinkle. Driving. Car. Seatbelt. Window. Air conditioning. Window. Wind. The wind. And the door. And the wind in the willows.
Pump. What is that? The sky above, the mud below, the hills, the winds, everything. Do another word. Fifth word. And the seventh
word.
The Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Well, do a dwarf at least, man. Yeah, what is this?
Okay, so there's some scenes there at the beginning with the girls watercoloring and talking about the boy. It occurred to us that there are no other scenes with Samantha where it's just her and someone else. It just kind of takes us away from Mason, and this is Mason's story, and in the effort to pace the film and to get it less than 3.5 hours, we decided to take that out. And then I I also was like, we have to, as entertaining as the charades game is, and as much as it illustrates the honeymoon period of the new family, it just was too long. So I had to cut that down and just try to get the essence in as fast a time as possible of the charades game. So do you want to? I'll say one more thing about the clip you're about to see. The Harry Potter party was an actual, real Harry Potter opening, whatever it is, release party. And they shot it with one camera. Some of the footage was out of focus, and so in the 11th year I went back and had to re-edit the Harry Potter thing to try to cut out some of the out of focus stuff on our kids there. And the music in the Harry Potter release party is an actual song from the Harry Potter movie, which we did not get the clearance rights to use until after we had finished the film. But we were determined to use that soundtrack, and they had to, really court some executives at Warner Brothers, but we did eventually get the rights.
That was not fair. No, actually it was. That's like the fairest thing ever. Oh, once again, I take you down. The mask. Did you bust your tears? First word. Chicken. Chicken. Bird. Second word. Hood. Big hair. Robin Hood.
Ah! Brilliant child!
Second word. Blanket. Hey, you can't use props.
Hey. Hey, judges speak. No props, no props. You can't use props. You can do it without that. Think.
Bunch. Folding. Is it
They
like
gathered?
folded? It's just a blessing around a blanket. Wrinkling it.
Wrinkle in time.
Wrinkle.
What are the guards in Azkaban?
Draw the line. Are you ready?
See how out of focus Mason is?
Count down with me, ladies and gentlemen. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go!
So that shot of the little girl, she was really there. Those were really the attendees, and that little girl with the glasses was not an extra. She was a real kid, and that little moment of her excitement is so genuine that I was like, we have to just wait a minute so we can get that in the movie. Okay, I think we are ready for another one. This one, the reckless driving. So here I have my Avid timeline.
Damn it. Get out of the way. Jesus Christ. God.
Samantha! Mason! Samantha!
Where the hell have you been?
I'm leaving you, Bill. We're moving out.
I doubt that.
Samantha Mason, come down!
No, don't think so. Oh, who's this?
I'm not here for you.
Oh, really? Oh, I know. You're here to protect protect my wife from me. Well, thank you so much.
Okay, stay back.
Why don't you come
Hey.
inside here, huh? Come inside here. Where the hell are you going? Get your ass upstairs. You're not going anywhere.
Stop. Come on.
Where the hell do you think you're going? Get upstairs! What the hell? Nobody's going anywhere. God damn it. No, God damn it.
Don't touch my kids.
All right, take him. Go on. Go on.
Don't touch them.
Take him.
Get in
Well,
the car.
take him then. Just take him. Go! Get upstairs! Olivia!
Leave up. Put your
Where are we going?
We're gonna stay with Carol and her family for a while. Don't look back. It's gonna be okay.
Okay, so that is probably, the reckless driving is probably the fastest edited sequence in the movie. I'm guessing. I guess we will never know until the cinemetrics are done on the whole movie, but.
Yeah, next week.
Okay, well, so, Yuri, can you talk about that?
Well, it's everyone understands this. These are three sequences with every icicle hanging there is a shot. So the length of the icicle is the length of a shot in time. And the trend line shows where the film becomes faster, up, and where it becomes slower. The trick and the interesting thing, Sandra Adair decided that actually in each of the sequences, the reckless driving, the yellow, and then the eviction of kids from the house, and then driving with mom are different colors here, and each of them have a peak, and that goes up. So that's the main thing. The other numbers are up there, so everyone can consult Cinemetrics
Right.
about this. Now, back to you, Sandra.
Okay, so the reckless driving, we had some technical difficulties in that the dad's dialogue was very distorted. But my goal was to just make it a terrifying moment for the kids and get out. Because that's how those kinds of, an accident, a traffic accident or anything like that is instantaneous, it's fast, you barely remember what ever even happened. So I edited those shots as short as I could to show the geography of what was happening, but also just emotionally, like, what the heck just happened here? Mom busting into the house and getting the kids and having the confrontation with the stepdad, for me was kind of a chilling moment and kind of a transformative moment for mom. But also, and it wasn't covered, but I really wanted to somehow get in there Mason's last glimpse of his stepbrother and stepsister. And so there were just like 5 frames that I had of him just kind of looking, but I tried to milk that moment as much as I could. Overall, in Boyhood, in terms of the editing, there was a very conscious effort not to over-dramatize, not to over-draw the tension, not to manufacture anything. The goal, again, was to keep it as real, human, relatable, and poignant as possible. And so many of the moments of tension that are in the movie were kind of unintentional. For example, the scene in the movie, you've all seen the movie, the scene in the movie when they are throwing the saw blades, the boys camp out and they're throwing the saw blades. The first time we screened that for an audience, there were members of the audience that gasped. And Rick and I were like, what the heck? What are they gasping about? And it took us a little while to understand that American audiences are programmed to expect something bad to happen. And Linklater never delivers on that. I mean, he rarely has some kind of tragic accident where a boy ends up with a saw blade in his head or, an arm cut off or something like that. And when we were making the movie, it never occurred to us that American audiences are so programmed the other shoe to drop, the bad moment to happen, the car accident to happen, the something bad to happen. So that was a surprise to us as filmmakers. They're like, wow, these are the people we're dealing with.
I have a suggestion. Since your editing actually follows a slow down after the faster thing, can we go to the slowest clip now?
Absolutely.
And perhaps then wrap
yeah.
up, and
Yes.
then we'll have time for some questions.
Okay,
Good idea?
sounds good. Yeah.
Oh, this is good, and this is good, and which one do you choose? Actually, there are two
It's
left. We can actually go.
Well, clip 9, this one's almost 3 minutes, and clip 9 is the,
All right, so this is the slowest. This is
Yeah,
the
let's do this one.
Linklater. Enable load. Is it telling us that it's tired? It should work now. Okay, what about this one?
And what is it that you
Okay,
do?
let's switch right now.
there it is.
Unable to. We can actually go to the clip itself. So which one was this by number?
I think it's clip 9.
All right.
Hey, Mason.
Hey, Jill.
So, where are you going?
Over to the college.
What's going on there?
My mom's a teacher.
Oh, cool. What does she teach?
Psychology, I think. What are you up to?
Oh, my mom owns Needleworks, the arts and crafts store over there. So I'm just kind of hanging out. But I'm supposed to be going to the hospital soon.
How come?
You know Courtney? Girl with the dyed black hair and the nose ring. Wears Hot Topic every day.
I think so.
We used to be best friends growing up, but we've kind of grown apart. She sort of got all emo, she thinks I'm a prep, but I still consider her a friend. Anyway, she cut one of her wrists. I don't know how bad, but I think I should go visit. So what are you reading?
Oh, it's Breakfast of Champions. Kurt Vonnegut it.
I think my older brother likes him. I'm reading To Kill a Mockingbird for the 3rd time. My friends make fun of me. I think I'm the only girl in the whole school who doesn't like the Twilight books. Have you read them?
Sure haven't.
I tried, but it was so cheesy. So how do you like San Marcos?
I liked it all right. It's a lot smaller than Houston, but it seems pretty cool. Have you always lived here?
Yeah. If you want the big city around here, you have to drive to San Antonio or Austin. Have you been there yet?
I went to San Antonio for a day, but I haven't been to Austin yet.
That's where all the high school kids go. On weekends for shows and stuff.
That's what I've heard.
So are you going to Shauna's party next weekend?
I think I heard about it. I'm not really sure, though.
Well, you should.
Why's that?
Well, Leanna has a big crush on you, and I know she was hoping you would go. You don't have a girlfriend, do you?
Not currently.
Well, then you should come. I'll tell Chase to make sure you're there.
Okay.
But don't tell Leanna I told you that. She'd kill me.
I won't.
Well, I better get going. See you later.
So a couple of things about that I want to say about that. That is so Linklater. If he never had to cut, he would be so happy. Funnily enough, that's a scene that I lobbied to take out of the movie because there's so much pressure about pacing a film, especially a film that has a running time of 2 hours and 45 minutes. And at one point I succeeded in getting Rick to agree to remove that scene from the movie, and then he showed it to Ethan, and Ethan was like, "Where's that scene? You have to put that scene back." And I was like, "Thanks, Ethan." There is such pressure to pace a movie from studios and from distributors. And the Linklater style of shooting and his actual shot design with camera movement and his desire to get as much in one shot as possible goes against the modern grain. We have a joke in comedies, Rick and I have a joke, I may have already said this, to make it faster, funnier, stupider. When we were on Dazed and Confused, we had a 5-month-long preview period, preview it for an audience, get notes, make changes, make it shorter. Preview it for an audience, get notes, make it shorter. It took forever. And Rick and I sort of developed a sign language because one of the executives would say, you just have to, like, and so Rick and I will look at each other and we'll just go, we're like, yeah, we know what we're talking about there. It's having a shot like that in a movie, it's excruciating for an editor because you're thinking, come on, he's going to go to Austin in later years. What are they talking about? Like, but now I see the value of having this scene in the movie. Sometimes it's not all about the editing, but sometimes it is.